Welcome to The Artist Matters. I'm Alex Rudy. Each episode features an artist sharing their creative journey, their origins, what inspires them, their process, and offering up a little inspiration, motivation, and advice to help you on your creative journey. Whether you're doing it for fun or looking to make a living, this show will help you on your journey and let the world know your art matters. Hello, one and all. Welcome to The Artist Matters. I'm your host, Alex Rudy, and welcome to August. To the continuing saga of the summer that wasn't. Yeah. A lot of our artists are still hanging in there, but not being able to perform on stage, teach classes, do their thing. They're finding other ways, which is good. And got to stick together one way or another. So let's just head right into today's guest, who is yet another referral from Lori Ann Davis. This guy's been in the biz for a long time, over 30 years in the music biz, to be exact. And he has gone on tours with big names. He has done recording sessions with them, done a lot of TV appearances, and his instrument of choice is the drums. And his name is Chuck Tilley. He was born and raised in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. And for some reason, he was just drawn to the drums. Don't know what it was, but that became the instrument for him to learn. He went on to graduate from the University of Alabama with a degree in music administration, oddly enough. Helped him learn the business side of the music industry. And he also went on to study orchestral percussion and big band drumming at the Eastman School of Music in New York. And from there, he started putting in the time and playing venues, done some side gigs here and there. He was in Nashville trying to make his break in the industry and just got in some recording sessions. And from there, word of mouth got out, and his big break came in the form of Lee Greenwood, the guy who says, "God bless the USA." He was looking for a drummer in his band, and someone referred him, and he auditioned and got the gig. And from there, he has been all over the country, all over the world, sharing the stage with other names you may know, like Englebert Humperdinck, Richard Marx, Michael McDonald, Alice Cooper, and Dolly Parton, just to name a few. Now, being in the industry, he had the honor of playing alongside several session musicians in the studios, and a lot of them got together and formed the band Sixwire. And they released an album and had a notable song called "Look at Me Now." The band also went on to perform and compete in a reality show called The Next Great American Band, kind of like an American Idol with bands. And this was in 2007. It was only one season, and Sixwire came in second. But Sixwire still continued to perform and combine their talents with many notable singers like Uncle Kracker, Scott Stapp, who is from Creed, Kevin Cronin from REO Speedwagon, Jason Schiff from Chicago, Mark McGrath from Sugar Ray, and so many more. And even during these strange times with this pandemic, Chuck and Sixwire have done some live streaming shows and are staying relevant and keeping the music going. Well, this was quite an interview. There was a lot to cover. I had lots of questions, but sometimes he answered them for me, and just a great career that he has never had a day job, and he's been able to keep performing with bands and going all over the world and touring and performing in sessions and doing TV appearances. This guy is a working musician. I apologize that our connection was a little glitchy, and yes, you'll hear sometimes his voice glitches and pops, but I think you'll still get the gist of it. It doesn't seem to affect the whole interview. I apologize if it does, but bear with me, and I hope you enjoy this. So without further ado, let's get into this, and here's my chat with Chuck Tilley. All right, let's welcome to the show, Chuck Tilley. How you doing?
Doing great, thanks.
Thank you for taking your time to share your story, and he's got a lot to tell. Let's begin at the beginning. As a kid, were you into playing music?
Yes, very, very much so. In that, like a lot of people, I started very young, listening to everything on the radio and buying 45 singles, I grew up in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and music was very big in the church I grew up in. I grew up in a, Southern Baptist church. Mm-hmm. I was always in children's choir and, always singing in choir. And then later on started taking music lessons, studying guitar, later drums. Mm-hmm. And so as a kid, music was huge to me. And then later on, I was 9 or 10, I started being in musicals and singing, the choir would evolve into musicals and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I was always just naturally, intuitively into all of that.
Were any members in your family musicians?
Well, it's weird. My mom, not so much. She was always listening to music, and had the radio and a great record collection, a really incredible record collection. But she doesn't really sing or play an instrument. My dad, on the other hand, is a really good singer, was always in choir his whole life. And he played, trumpet and French horn, not professionally, but he played in school. And no one has any idea how or why I gravitated toward drums and percussion. It just happened. And to this day, we have no idea. There are drummers in my family.
Why do you think it happened? It just was meant to be?
Yeah, I just gravitated toward that. As a kid, seeing the Beatles and other people on TV, I just would automatically stare at the drummer the whole time, and my parents were smart enough in that they're like, okay, great. And they would buy me toy drum sets and all that stuff. I would destroy them all at the end of Christmas Day, so later on, I guess when I was 8 or 9, they're like, okay, we want you to study a melodic instrument as well as drums. And so I love guitar, so I started guitar, and then later on just basic snare drum lessons, but they were all the best drummers play melodic instruments, whether it's keyboards or guitar or whatever. And so they were smart enough, God bless them, to point me in the right direction of learning a melodic instrument as well as drums. So, and that paid off in music school. Trust me, that was a huge help. Later on in college.
When did you get your first real drum set?
Well, I got my first snare drum when I was about 8 or 9. Drum only, just rudimental school band snare drum, and then messed around with drum set, but I didn't own one until I was about 13. Well, maybe 13. I got my first real drum set, and then started getting serious then.
So you mentioned school. You went to University of Alabama?
Yeah. They had at that time they had a really great jazz big band program, and they had a percussion instructor who was Juilliard trained. Got his undergrad and master's at Juilliard with a very famous percussionist, and he was one of his disciples. And so it was a great place to be at that point because I was getting really good classical training in orchestra and all of that. And then they had a really great big band, which was more of a Buddy Rich, Count Basie style big band. And so between the two of those, I got a really good wide study of all sorts of music, and it was, so it was a great situation, both worlds for me. Plus, there was a great local situation where there were a lot of frat parties to play and a lot of bars, so I could play my drum set and play in rock bands and do that stuff on weekends, and then play jazz gigs and society gigs and all that stuff as well. So it was a great environment being in Tuscaloosa, and then that's where the school is, in Tuscaloosa, and then big city would be Birmingham, and so I would do a lot of stuff up there as well. So it was I was in a good situation. Music, everything.
And jazz, huh? What made you gravitate to jazz?
All the same. Just I would hear stuff as a kid and see things on TV. You see Buddy Rich on TV all the time. Back then he was on the Tonight Show with Carson all the time. Count Basie and stuff like that. And I just gravitated toward it. I started buying the records, and a lot of those acts would come through and play in our area. So as a kid, I saw Benny Goodman. When I was 12, I saw Benny Goodman when he was still touring. I saw Count Basie several times. I saw Woody Herman. Of course, I saw Buddy Rich several times. So we were one of those cities, even though it was a small town, we still got all the great concerts because we were a big college town. And so I just started studying music as a kid and learning how to play it. And then the other cool for me was being a college town, the musicals put on, Broadway, off-Broadway musicals put on. So I was always the guy that got hired to play in the pit. So I played, West Side Story and Brigadoon and anything, South Pacific and all these musicals. I got to play them because I was one of the few guys who could play percussion and play drum set. And so I got great experience on the local level, getting to play a lot of the Broadway musical things. And so, priceless experience for me.
Now, you have in your bio that you did some drumming at Eastman School of Music in New York?
Yes. I would. So when I was doing my undergrad, I would go up to Eastman during the summers. Oh. And it was the same thing. I would take Professor John Beck, who was there for many years. He was the timpaniist for the Rochester Philharmonic, and he was a very famous teacher for orchestral percussion. Like, this is where Steve Gadd went, and many, many very famous drummers and percussionists went. And I would go up to study with him orchestral stuff. And also at the same time, I would study with Keith Copeland and Dave Mancini and several other famous drum set players. So all I would do was just take and then practice all week, because they would just kick my tail in my lessons and give me tons of material to work on. And this was stuff I wasn't getting done at Alabama. And so it was just in addition to the stuff I wasn't doing in Alabama. And so it was just a ton of music homework and of listening to all the classical records and the jazz records, and then taking these stacks of music they would give me to study, to work on, and I would do that all during the summer, and then and a lot of it I would work on all during the year and come back the next summer and just have them pile it on. And so it was a great experience, because that was a whole nother, Eastman is a level like a Juilliard or Manhattan or mine. It was one of those really great, and it still is. It's an incredible music school. And so and it's very hard to get into. To audition to get in, you have to audition to even be considered to go up to study. So it was a great experience. Teachers were just a whole nother level, and it was. The funny thing too was, being from Alabama, apparently I have a sort of accent, because I had a lot of grief for that up there, which is hilarious. So
of course, that's New York.
Yeah.
Hey, did you ever see the movie Whiplash?
I did.
You didn't have any instructors like that.